Good morning, everybody. My name is Renato Teixeira. I am board of the Brazilian American Chamber of Commerce. The chamber, who is the second biggest chamber in New York, are pleased to introduce and cooperate with this event, organize this event. And as a matter of fact, we have almost every week an event in order to strengthen the relationships between Brazil and the United States.
Bom dia, good morning all. As Renato mentioned, I'm Dr. Soviati, Director of Innovation and Institutional Development at FAS, Foundation for Amazon Sustainability. And this is the balance, the sink, how the carbon can be captured. And as you can see here, land use can capture carbon, ocean and atmosphere as well, but land use, which is related to the Amazon, can capture carbon. So we're not talking about just stop deforestation because it's something that is good for the Amazon. No, it's good for the planet. It's good for us because we'll capture carbon and then we're going to reduce CO2 and other GHG emission gases. And then, why the Amazon? Firstly, because the Amazon is the largest carbon sink and carbon carbon reservoir. Not just the Amazon itself, but also the other tropical forests. But as you can see here, the Amazon is the largest one. I don't know if you can click. I can do it myself. Thank you. So this is day by day, hour by hour, global satellite imagery about the humidity. So this is the Amazon here. So as you can see here, the humidity from the ocean goes here, consolidate the clouds, the water vapor, and then pumps water upstream and downstream. So the Amazon, we say, or we used to say that the Amazon is the lung of the planet. It's not that precisely correct. Mostly, or more importantly, the Amazon is the AC of the planet because pumps water and cooling the planet. So in regards of El Niño, La Niña, the Amazon can decrease the climate effects, the bad climate effects, if we keep this Amazon standing, doing its job, its services, and consistent services, pumping water and cooling the planet. Ground rules for tackle illegalities. So we have like 8 countries, each one with their laws. So they decided to have a common ground in order to tackle illegalities. In the Amazon, we have 2 major, if I may summarize, issues: inequalities and illegalities. Illegal logging, illegal mining, illegal land grabbing, they are key for fostering violence and kill indigenous leaders and activists. Second, establish this inclusive governance within the Amazon diplomacy, including indigenous peoples. Third, the energy transition for all, and not just energy itself, like power, but energy and its components, like connectivity. And last but not least, protect indigenous leaders. Unfortunately, last two weeks ago, it was published a list that provided that Brazil is the most threatened place to be an activist or indigenous leaders. We, in Brazil, we kill like twice more leaders than the second place, which is Indonesia. So a lot of people has been putting their lives in front of the forest. And the results, the impacts, we are able to decrease deforestation by 39% in the territories that we have been working with since 2008. And unfortunately, other territories that we do not work with, the deforestation in the same period has increased 33%. So we are able to increase income generation for these families, triple this the income generation of them, and decrease deforestation by 40%, 39 exactly. So FAS has the proof of concept that invest of the Amazon with this systemic approach, you can get people dignity, providing prosperity, and decrease deforestation. So our challenge now is to scaling this up to other areas in the Amazon.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yes. Good morning again. My name is Suraj, and this is my colleague Anthony. We are both from Sumitomo Mitsui Trust Bank from Japan. And we ourselves, around the year 2000, we were considered too big to fail, and we received government support, and as did most of the Japanese banking institution, and came out of the crisis. And as a trust bank, we are very keen. We have a mission towards sustainability and social good. And the bank has actually committed, has stated that it will use 500 million per year of its own money towards projects related to impact equity or impact investments. So these investments can be anything ranging from philanthropic to full profit to anywhere in between. And I'm just curious to know, in terms of engaging entities that are mobilizing such private capital, what message should we take back to our managements? What is the mechanism to get involved in the Amazon? In any of these, the spectrum from philanthropic to for-profit to anywhere in between. And, who is your organization speaking to? If you can enlighten us on that.
And I would also add, I would be curious about scale in terms of investments.
Okay, well, in terms of FAS, our annual budget is $10 million a year. Next year we're going to probably double to $20 million annual budget. And I think the answer to your question is that we need blended finance. And so I think philanthropic money is necessary, because part of the things that are needed for the Amazon will not pay off. There is sort of a fashion about bioeconomy. So bioeconomy, acai, plantation, and so on. It's not going to do it by itself. But it can play a very important role, but there are things that require philanthropic money or public money. And the problem of public money, having been in involvement, is that it's very bureaucratic. It's very slow and tends to be inefficient. So private sector philanthropy can help increase the efficiency of public spending. And in terms of investing, we're exploring different tools. One of which is with a Brazilian bank called the XP, which is sort of a new and very dynamic and very creative bank, to create a portfolio of investment in ESG-friendly companies that will generate part of the gains to invest in the Amazon. They are ready to forgive part of the management fee. So a fraction of the management fee for the portfolios that they're putting together will be directed towards the Amazon. So the investor will get the revenues, but will also be contributing at the same time to the Amazon. And we're developing different portfolios, one of which is also engaging the investor in sharing part of the gains with the Amazon. So there, and it would be great to follow up a conversation and see how this can match your clients, and also get ideas. So we're very open to creating these new investment venues that can generate revenues for the Amazon. I think the case that Victor mentioned is a very good one. We had this dilemma many companies started knocking on our door and say, oh, we want to work with you because you have a good reputation and so on. And then we have a very strong board. And the board said, well, should we partner with this company that had messed up here and there and so on? And then we invented a methodology that has 3 steps, basically. First is to ask the top management, senior management, president, CEO, and try to measure the degree of commitment that they have. The second is to look at the programs that they have in place and address the question whether or not these programs are robust enough to deliver change, to go, in simple terms, from bad to good. And third, if they had indicators to monitor this change from bad to good. So we developed this methodology. We have now a group of consulting firms that can use this methodology. So whenever somebody approaches us, we say, well, go through this, you pay the consultancy, and the consultancy will give us a report, and that report goes to our board, and with our evaluation, and eventually say yes or no. And that's very much connected to us, as an institution. But I think the more general problem of greenwashing, I'm optimistic, George, because I'm an old-timer in this field. And I can remember 30 years ago when a company would only plant a tree and take a picture or publish a book, and that in the day of Jeddah, the day of the tree, or the environmental day, take a picture, blah, blah, blah. This is completely changed. Now you have standards, GRE in terms of reporting, and you have certification. This building is LEED certified. It's not perfect. I'm sure that these standards are evolving constantly. So I take a sort of optimistic view with a long-term view. But there is still a lot of greenwashing, and we have to see how we accelerate changing from greenwashing to real sustainability change. And that requires consulting firms. Because oftentimes a business leader wants to do but doesn't know how to do. His or her staff doesn't have the tools. So we have to have consulting firms. We have to have staff that is able to deliver change. And we have to have finance mechanisms for that to happen. If you're changing your production system to one that has a lower carbon footprint, that requires funding. And that funding should have better interest rates. And that's where regulation comes in. I think it would be very important to have regulations that create incentives, lower taxes. Now we're discussing the reform of the tax system of Brazil. And we've been pressing to have incentives for low carbon emission. In terms of regulation, in the case of Brazil, we need to go forward in terms of the carbon market. And the carbon market can be a relevant player. Again, it's not going to be the silver bullet, just like bioeconomy is not going to do it all. But I think the carbon market can play a small role. But the general answer is we need a mixture. We need these blended mechanisms to fill the gap. And finally, a word about the big funds. Victor mentioned that KfW Bank has just given for selected funds to run a project of about 60 million euros, which is big for us, but compared to the Amazon, it's not big enough. The good news is that institutions like the World Bank are thinking of something in the order of $5 to $10 billion a year for the Amazon, and that's the scale that I think we need. That's something around those numbers, $5 to $10 billion a year, to invest in a development pathway, as was in the presentation made by Victor. We need to go from deforestation-based development model to a forest-standing development model. And that requires a lot of different kinds of investment. For example, we need to invest more in science and technology and innovation for that to happen. We don't invest as much in forest products as we invest in soybeans. It's not a surprise that Brazil has become a champion of production of agriculture, because Embrapa, which is the technology institution of Brazil, has invested a lot of money in conventional crops, soybeans, coffee, and sugar cane, and so on. Has not invested as much. So one thing that this big blended finance should include is an investment in science technology, taking advantage of the existing institutions in the Amazon, but also partnering with institutions in southern Brazil and outside of Brazil as well.
Yes, my name is Marcio. I am not so confident, because everything we talked about is to legalize, to rule, to trust in private companies, trust in governments and so on. But we have in Amazon, Brazilian Amazon, about 30 million people living. Half of them live from deforestation. About that. And the crime. What about the crime activities, the illegal mining, the illegal pasturing, etc., etc. You know those cycles, huh? People come, destroy the forest, create a pasture, start to create cattle. Some years ago, it comes the regularização fundiária. I don't know how to say it in English, but it's it happens from time to time. The objective of the man is not exactly to explore the forest, is to, within some time, be the landowner. That exists. Is that, okay, COP28 will be in Dubai, right? Over the carbon energy model from oil. Are they prepared to imagine what happens in the lands of the world?
Well, you raised several points. Let me see if I can address a few, and Victor can complement. I think you're quite right. There is a whole economic driver of deforestation, which is based on land speculation and grabbing public land. And dealing with that requires specific action. And crime, the second point you raised, is really an issue. Drug trafficking, especially cocaine coming from Colombia and Peru through the Amazon, has become a big business. And some parts of the Amazon are really controlled by the drug trafficking, and that's an important issue. Part of the declaration of Belém that was made by the presidents was positive in that direction, because they agreed to have an international police center in Manaus. But that's the declaration. Between the declaration and the real action, there is a time lapse that oftentimes governments take too long. But at least they agreed to focus on
I justify with mining companies.
Yeah.
Just the businessman, what a crime.
Yeah, no. And that's a very relevant, and I think we have to address in discussions that go beyond police, like legalizing drugs. That's a debate in Brazil, which still, I think, very immature. If we look at cases like Portugal, for example, we have had much more progress than in countries like ours, and that also applies to Mexico and other countries. And Ecuador is going through this turmoil associated with drug trafficking. So that's a big issue, which is not unique to the Amazon, but I think the whole Latin America is suffering from that. And finally, a point about the cities and employment. 80% of the population of the Amazon is urban. and most of the population don't live from revenues from deforestation and agriculture. There are many Amazonians. We have always to remind ourselves that there are different realities. I was recently in Sinop, in Mato Grosso. Soybean country, very prosperous, very wealthy. It's very different from Javari, where it's showing Mozambique. So it's very hard to generalize. But the big picture is that 80% of the Amazon is urban, and most people are employed through the service industry. It's not agriculture, it's not anything else, but it's service. So we need to change that to a green economy. Pope Francis tells us that we don't have room for optimism, but we have a moral obligation to be hopeful. That's how I feel. I'm hopeful, I'm not optimistic. What fuels this hope is a number of things. For example, the Minister of Economy of Brazil, Haddad, has just embraced a plan for a green transition. And that has become a big thing in Brazil. And he's been very outspoken about that. The Brazilian president has also taken that on board in his political discourse. Okay, that's part of it, the discourse. The action that is needed is still to be seen. But I think there are partners like AYA that is in Systemic, as a consulting firm that is supporting the Brazilian government to develop these tools. So I think there is an interesting sign, a number of signs for hope.
I'm a physicist by training and a lecturer at MIT in system dynamics, and my colleagues and I have built a model, a climate simulator model that's now being used by policymakers all over the world. It's called En-ROADS. Basically simulates whether or not we can get to only 2-degree global temperature rise by 2100, and if we can, how do we do it? So the model's conclusions are that it's a combination of lowering fossil fuels, of course, all three of them, combined with a boost in renewables and carbon sequestration. The interesting punchline which pertains to this talk, which I find troubling but also intriguing, is that reforestation actually doesn't contribute too much to temperature decline. It's significant, but it's not tremendous. So I don't want that kind of result to undermine everything that's going on in the Amazon, in the restoration of the Amazon. So my question is one of metrics. So if temperature is not the most poignant metric for evaluating the potency of Amazonian restoration, what would be? So from your talk, I had an idea about this. Maybe it's something to do with humidity, with the air conditioning cycle that the Amazon provides. Maybe we can provide some new metric that really establishes that in a scientific way so that progress in this front is not devalued just because it doesn't hugely contribute to global temperature decrease.
I'd just like to explore another side of the equation. You were thinking of mitigation.
Mm-hmm.
There's another side of the climate equation, which is adaptation.
Of course.
And together with adaptation comes a concept of climate injustice. So those that have done the least to create a problem,
yes, of course,
are suffering the most.
Yes.
And I strongly think that nature-based solutions that are labor-intensive could fit very well this challenge, because you need to generate jobs for unskilled people. And these unskilled people are very close to nature in general, so they can not only plant trees, there are a lot of things that go beyond planting trees, but just as a sort of a simplified version, thinking of planting trees. So if we have, there is a movement in Africa that was led by late Wangari Maathai, who was a Nobel Prize, to plant 1 billion trees in Africa. Africa is suffering from desertification. Just like the northeast of Brazil is also going through a desertification process. So restoration of these landscapes, with small dams, controlling erosion and planting trees and so many different things are important. So I would say that nature-based solutions are the best. If you consider CCS, for example, carbon capture and storage, it's just dark carbon, doesn't have co-benefits.
It's a drop in the bucket too.
Yeah.
Temperature-wise.
So I think we have to when we factor in the importance of nature-based solutions for the adaptation side of the equation, then it becomes more competitive or more attractive than just looking at the emissions and sort of the carbon equation. And thank you once again.